The Inquirer had sent his finding north. Bojun was looking at a gap in the records that led exactly where I had built it to lead. And then, because powerful men believe that hospitality is its own kind of intelligence gathering, he invited Shao Mingzhu to dinner. The invitation arrived through the formal merchant network on a Tuesday morning, when Bojun hosting a dinner for the city's principal trade partners, the Shao consortium included. I read it twice, not because it surprised me, because the timing told me something. The dinner invitation was always going to come. I had known it since merchant Shen Poru extended his endorsement, since the moment the consortium's standing became useful to Bojun socially, rather than merely interesting commercially. What the timing told me was that the investigation had not yet returned a finding he had to act on. He was still in the window between suspicion and confirmation, comfortable enough to extend hospitality, concerned enough to want proximity. A powerful man who invites you to dinner when he is not yet certain what you are is a man who believes that watching you eat will tell him something the records could not. It will not tell him what he is looking for. It will tell him something else. I noted this. The two acquisition targets who would be present. The Eastern Corridor warehouse operator, contract negotiation 3 weeks in, ready to close, needing one clause resolved. And the grain broker near the southern gate. A courtesy invitation from Bojun, but a man I had been watching since the second month. I told Xiaoyan the targets. I told her what terms to have ready. I told her what to wear. She said, "What about Zhoushan?" I said, "He will be there. He always attends Bojun's dinners." She said, "That wasn't what I asked." I picked up the invitation. I said, "Prepare the terms." She prepared the terms. She did not pursue it. The expression on her face pursued it without her. The room was set as Bojun prefers. The long table, the formal configuration. Every placement carrying information about how he sees the relationships in the room. Bojun at the head. Chaoren to his left, the heir, visible, endorsed. Liu Fengqiao beside him. Pale gold robes with every ornament deliberate, already working the table before the first course arrived. Merchant Shen Poru at the far end. 60s, still, watching everything, with the slow, deliberate attention of a man who has been right for 20 years and has learned to be quiet about it. Zhoushan seated adjacent to me. Not across. Adjacent. Bojun's configuration for people he considers aligned. He was telling both of us, with the seating, that he thought we were on the same side. He was not entirely wrong. The Eastern Corridor warehouse operator was 2 places to my right. 3 weeks of negotiation, 1 clause unresolved. A man who needed to hear the seasonal adjustment framed as an advantage rather than a concession. I gave him 3 sentences during the soup course. He nodded. He said he thought that was reasonable. He will sign by the week's end. The grain broker was seated near the center of the table, close enough for an interval conversation, far enough that the approach needed to be natural. The interval between courses gave me 4 minutes. I used 3. I offered him 1 figure. The spring consignment rate. Exactly what he had been unable to get from the Wen intermediary for 2 seasons. His expression changed in the way expressions change. When a number is precisely right and the person offering it clearly already knows it is. He said he would think about it. I said, "The offer is good through the end of the month." He said he would have an answer by tomorrow. I returned to the table. 2 moves. Dinner not yet half over. I picked up my cup. Bojun rose for the formal toast midway through the evening. He spoke well. He always speaks well, which is one of the things I learned about him in 7 years of living in his household. The voice of a man who has given toasts for long enough that the words come easily, and the sincerity underneath them is neither performed nor suppressed. He toasted prosperity. He toasted the trade partnerships that sustain the city. He toasted the welcome addition of the Shao Consortium to the network of houses that keep this city's commerce moving. He raised his cup to Shao Mingzhu by name. The table raised theirs. I raised mine. He was toasting the woman who held his debt instruments in a locked case 3 streets away. He was thanking her for the route access that had made his quarterly figures more comfortable than they would otherwise have been. He was sincere. He was grateful. He did not know. I kept my expression at its exact baseline. The same expression I have been keeping in every room, where I have not been known for 8 months. Zhoushan, beside me, was looking at the table. His cup was raised. After the toast, as the room settled back into conversation, I said something low, only he could hear it. An observation about the toast, specifically about the word Bojun had used, the northern merchant term for partnership. That informal usage carries a precise implication of junior standing, for the party being welcomed into the network. Dry, exact, true. Zhoushan laughed. Quietly. Unexpectedly. The kind of laugh that surprises the person doing it, that comes out before the professional register can decide whether to permit it. He looked at me. I looked at the table. The corner of my mouth moved. He said, voice low, "You're going to make this evening very difficult to get through professionally." I said, "I expect you'll manage." I picked up my cup. When I set it down, he was still looking at me. I did not tell him to stop. Across the room, Chang Bao had seen the exchange. He looked at the middle distance. He thought, I imagine, about in-food, the second half of the dinner. I watched the Wen family across the table, the way I have watched them for 8 months, from a position they did not build and cannot see clearly enough to assess. Chaoren was comfortable. Good wine, a pleased father, and the northern losses still invisible in a season of sufficient general trade. He has the ease of a man who has not yet been asked to account for anything. Liu Fengqiao was working. She was working with the practiced efficiency of a woman who has calculated every social advantage in the room and is extracting each one in sequence. The magistrate's officer's wife, connection maintained. The silk merchant's representative, favor extended. Merchant Shen Poru, the warmth she does not actually feel. Deployed with the precision of someone who has learned that the powerful are not required to feel the things they perform. She was good at this. I would not have chosen her as an enemy if she had not chosen herself as one. Bojun was watching me. Not suspiciously. Assessingly. He has not yet received the full report on the records gap. He is doing what he does. Reading a room, identifying threat levels, calibrating his response to each element before the element has fully declared itself. He met my eyes once, across the table. I held them for exactly as long as a confident merchant holds a powerful man's gaze. Not challenging, not deferential. Present, settled, having nothing to prove, because there is nothing he could take from her. He nodded, fractionally. He looked away first. I returned to my cup. Zhoushan, beside me, had seen this exchange. He said nothing. The quality of his silence was the specific quality of a man who has just watched something and found it exactly what he expected. My rooms. After. The lamp still lit. The dinner, still settling in the way dinners settle. The particular quiet after a room full of people that is different from the quiet of an empty room, because one of them is earned. I sat at the table. I took the jade ring from my thumb. I held it in my palm. I have done this before. In the moments between moves, between the plan and the next step of the plan, in the particular suspension of a thing that is not yet finished, but has begun to look like itself. This time, I spoke to the woman I used to be. Not with grief. Not with the exhaustion of someone who has been carrying something too long, in the wrong conditions. With something closer to the way you speak to someone you have been carrying for a long time, and are almost ready to set down in a place that is finally worthy of them. I said, "We're almost there." I held the ring a moment longer. Then I set it on the table. Then I picked it up and put it back on my right thumb where it belongs. In the corridor outside my rooms, I could hear Xiaoyan's voice. Low, animated, the register she uses when she is telling someone something she finds genuinely satisfying and has been waiting to say for longer than is strictly comfortable. And another voice. Lower, occasional. Cheng Bao. I do not know what she was saying. I could hear clearly that they were both trying not to smile. I looked at the ring on my right thumb. I thought, almost there. I blew out the lamp. When Cyan learned that the sweetest kind of victory is the one where your enemies raise a cup to your name and mean every word, and still do not know whose health they are drinking to. This has been a whisper from the Teahouse. The next episode drops soon. Come back for what happens next.